Hello, I'm Logan Crawford, and welcome to the NFT Studio 24 podcast interview. NFT Studio 24 is a global educational media website dedicated to empowering the emerging world of decentralization, blockchain, metaverse, NFT, and crypto by reporting on the latest and most authentic news. We interview various figures to highlight their expertise and contributions to the industry in hopes of educating our global audience. NFT Studio 24 will soon be launching a Metaverse for All campaign in Africa, Japan, Pakistan, and India to help educate 3 million people, especially young students and adult learners, about Web3 and Metaverse. We believe education is the key to development, so NFT Studio 24 is offering certificates of experience and research to learners. Simply sign up at NFT Studio 24, read and research different case studies on NFTstudio24.com, pass the exam, and you will receive a certificate in the future. Okay, on today's episode, we have two very special guests. Barn Cleave, he is the CEO of canVERSE. And has an amazing background in blockchain technology, AR, and digital content creation. His company is currently working on a metaverse content development utilizing cutting-edge technology set to innovate the future gaming spaces. Edward Mason is also on our show today. He is the founder of Frogland and Good Ribbit Productions, LLC. He is also the UN speaker on Web3, XR, and the Metaverse with over 10 years of experience in immersive technologies. Gentlemen, welcome both to our show.
Hello.
Good to see you here today. Barn, let's begin with you. Tell us about canVERSE. It has an interesting portfolio related to the Metaverse. Tell us about how you and your team are contributing to future gaming spaces.
Well, we've been very interested in VR and AR for a good couple of years now. So when we started was beginning of 2001, we were looking at how people were going to interact in a 3D space. And that's like now what we're doing now, we're talking on a 2D screen and you've got a mouse and you move it up, down, left and right. But we think quite quickly we're going to move into a 3D environment where we'll have holographic type screens, VR and AR. And my background has been in telcos and mobile operators and being very used to a mobile first approach. And we were quite interested in this whole idea that if you designed for XR, then that could then achieve later into world space. So my best analogy would be, there was that time in Minority Report where everyone got very excited with Tom Cruise swiping a big screen.
Exactly.
And you're like, that's just a big touch screen. That's not anything really exciting. I mean, you just have a very big screen, but actually the Iron Man films have got it right, where you see Iron Man picking something up and then moving it further and backwards, because as humans, we understand 3D spaces. Now, while we were doing that, we actually made what now is a metaverse, because obviously Mark Zuckerberg suddenly pushed that as an idea in people's consciousness. So by the end of 21, we'd already created a place where 64 people in real time can join each other and play various different games. So we have multiple games like chess, checkers, and backgammon. But our sort of secret sauce that we were doing 2022 was you could actually import your NFTs. So we believe in the interoperability of NFTs. And what you can do is you can actually use either your PNG picture as your game piece, or with certain projects, what we're doing is going, does this person own, let's say, a Void Runner, which is a particular NFT project? And then we give them little spaceships that we pre-designed that are imported. So they're a way to people to re-engage with their NFTs, not just in a sort of, here's my picture of a PNG, but actually here's my 3D object. I can then chat with people. We do things like put these pictures and these NFT collections on people's walls. And as I said, as there's 64 people in the room, you can really show them off, and people are, as I said, playing games. So that's how we've been looking at the Metaverse, making sure it's more interoperable. The other thing that we've been doing is really sort of focusing on board games. And we think the reason we do that is there's a lot of sort of games where there's one metaverse and another. And it's really difficult to work out, if let's say there's a gun that has a certain number of bullets it can hold versus a wizard who can shoot fireballs. That's quite difficult to work out how those two things work in those two different games. But in something like checkers or backgammon, if you want to have the little army man as your playing piece that, you move around as your game token, that's what you can do, or the wizard. It doesn't really matter. They don't have different levels or powers. They're just what represents you. And this is sort of the way of not only having an avatar for yourself, but then how you want to show off your NFTs. And that's what we've been working on most of 2022. And now we successfully did a mint right at the end, just before Christmas. And so we did a can mint, and then later on this year, we'll do an NFT mint for like chess sets and other environments as well.
It's an exciting time for sure for gamers and everybody across the world, no doubt. Edward, let's turn to you for just a second. Frogland is more focused on bringing creators and builders together through NFTs. Tell us a little bit more about Frogland, Metaverse, and how it's beneficial for its holders.
Muted there. Yes, so great question. If you like, I could probably even do a stream of the Metaverse while we're talking, if you enable screen sharing. Otherwise, I can give you a good description of the idea of Frogland and where it came from. Because we started this collection of notorious frogs, a 10,000 piece NFT collection back in, I think it was about June of 2021. We saw the recent uptake in interest in the NFT space and the Web3 space, and we saw it as a new way to fund content creation. For a bit of context, previous to Frogland, I've been building a games console, a next generation games console with NVIDIA to bring Web3 content, VR and AR technologies to the masses in a more accessible way. So when Web3 came about, it started to get interesting to see the content creators flooding into an emerging technology space and spending so much time to learn how new technology is used. But the metaverse applications that were out, especially when we started Frogland, were quite lacking. They were empty voids reliant on the users to provide the content for engagement. If you didn't have people online, it was a very empty, dull space. And yet we saw these collections popping up that had true communities of artists and creators who really loved, with a passion, their artwork, and they associated themselves with it, their digital persona online, if you will. So we felt we needed a metaverse that really looked and felt like the artwork that we all loved so much. And so we went out to build a metaverse of higher graphical fidelity than was already out there. We have a rockstar founding team of about seven awesome individuals that have come from Hollywood, from Silicon Valley, and from the sort of tech and the creativity space. And with that, we brought on board the team that built PlayStation Home, the former management team from Sony's flagship London studio. And we started building out a world that was rich in lore and narrative, that was co-created with a community. So if you had a notorious frog, then you would be able to have direct input into how this game and how this ecosystem was being built out. And so effectively, we started building a playground for the content creators. And with that, we released a playable demo, a vertical slice, back at the end of 2021. And through that, we've been iterating and updating. We realized the metaverse is something much like the internet, a transition from a two-dimensional to a three-dimensional internet. This is a platform that needs to be accessible on a multitude of different devices and platforms. So we are building not only the thick client that you would download and install on your computer, but we're releasing a number of mobile applications as well as web-based applications that all tie together to the same back-end infrastructure, giving you this metaverse, this seamless interoperable experience between multiple different platforms with the same user base. So the idea of Frogland really stemmed from seeing what was out there and wanting something better. And with that, we've been working with our community now for about 18 months to build a really, really flagship, cool piece of content. And at the same time, the tools that we developed to license and to provide to other members in the space who may need to build something similar.
Wonderful. Very exciting time, as I said before. Barn, let's turn to you once again. The metaverse is the next generation digital economy. However, with the market down right now, a lot of people are hesitating whether or not to join the space. How do you convince those folks to join?
I think that what's going to happen this year is it's going to be more engaging. I think I agree with Ed. There's been a lot of sort of empty spaces people could go, and it was more of a look, you could do it, and then they didn't really focus on what you were going to do. It's basically, it'll be making things that are more engaging and do something for people to do it, and why would they do it? And I think that's why you need some form of game or some sort of activity or community around what people want to do. So you do need some way of adding some form of utility, make it accessible to everyone. So with canVERSE, we've gone for a very high-end look. It's like near realistic level of quality. Now that doesn't work on a mobile phone, but what we are doing is working with partners to stream that to their mobile phones as well. So it becomes a bit of accessibility. I think another important point is you want to, once you can show someone this, what the value is, like why would you, the sort of, for me, it's someone would always go, well, why would I want an iPad when they first came out? And then suddenly now everyone's like, well, why wouldn't you want an iPad? You have to show why. You got to, what is the thing that you want to do with it? And I think particularly with sort of NFT projects, you want to try and ease someone into why they want the NFT. It shouldn't be up front. You have to have an NFT first, and then you can join the space. So we definitely do if you don't want to buy an NFT, but you just want to play chess and checkers or backgammon, then that's, you can just go and do that. And then you slowly onboard them and say, well, when you're playing with someone else, they'll go, well, why are your pieces looking different than mine? And then because there's voice, people can go, well, actually, this is an NFT. And then you get sort of social and people interacting anyway and saying, this is what it is. So I think what's quite good, even though it is a hard market, I think the projects that are still around, being quite resilient about, really passionate about the space, they're going to build extra features, make it more engaging, and that's how it's going to become an exciting space, by just showing what you can do and proving to people what value there is.
It's almost like electric cars. Build an electric car that is so enviable that you won't have to convince them to buy it. They'll be flocking to your door to buy it, right?
Yeah, it's a good car. So people then go, oh, and then you, as you said, it's like, oh, it's electric, and then that's how it happens.
And that's a bonus. Awesome.
Yeah.
Edward, let's turn to you now. The biggest challenge for any Web3 investor is to find the right project to invest in. And we know there are more investors in the space right now than clients. These investors have become quite specific with their investment choices, knowing the risks. What's the solution for this issue?
So there's a phrase in the space, DYOR, do your own research. I think we're now seeing people actually take the time to do a little more research because we're not in the same hype cycle that we've been in for the past sort of 12 months or so. This is a good thing. It's finally meant a lot of bad actors have left the space. It's left a lot of the builders in the space continuing to build. So I think previously when Web3's first kicked off, we had far too much money and far too few Solidity engineers. That has now changed. We now have far too many Solidity engineers and far too little money in the space. So this is really making sure the teams that are able to build are building tools and products and services that people are actually going to want to use. And if you're building something that people don't want to use, then you're probably not going to live long enough to see the next bull cycle. So it's an interesting space to watch evolve. As far as being able to get more people in here, I think gaming is definitely a key part of that. The gamers have not yet adopted this technology. NFT can be considered a dirty word to some gamers themselves. I can understand why that is, mainly because as a gamer myself, and have been for quite some time, for the past 10, 15 years, we've watched the gaming space get worse and worse and more extractive, to the point where every time a gaming company comes out with a new shiny piece of tech, you're dubious how this is going to fleece you for more money. So when NFTs came out, people were rightfully distrustful of them because they didn't understand how the technology is used. They simply saw another way for the EAs and Activisions to scrape some more cash out of them. So the idea of a killer app, I think, has yet to be discovered, or at least yet to be implemented. An application or a piece of technology that's so useful that you can't help but adopting a new piece of technology. So I think that potentially the Metaverse is the killer app for Web3. I think time will definitely tell, but I think overall, watching this space evolve over the past 18 months, and now being in the market that we're in, and I think we'll continue to be in this market for another 18 months, we're going to start seeing really, really cool pieces of technology evolving, because ultimately Web3 is technology, and this does need to be implemented in games and applications in ways that we haven't necessarily thought of before. I think, again, once gamers realize the notion of them buying skins in a game like Fortnite, which can be taken away from them if Fortnite should ever cease to be, is entirely avoidable if you were to have that as a digital asset that you had in your possession. So there's this level of education that is going to happen, and I think you need good content to educate people. But I think what excites me so much about the space is the fact that we do have so many good content creators spending so much time to build and develop and learn how this technology is working. So yeah, I deviate a little bit from the question, but that's my little babble there.
No, very, very interesting indeed. Barn, what are your thoughts on all this?
I think that I think actually it's a pretty similar view on it all. There's two comments actually there. The one about the NFT and gamers. I think one mistake that people learn the hard way, and I think the big game studios have learned, is they try and migrate the gamers into the NFT space, and they think that's the best way to get to market. And I think that is proven to be quite a bad route, because they go, oh, I've got an existing user base of like 5 million gamers. Surely I can convert 1% into NFTs. The better way to do it is go and talk to the NFT community, the degens, and see what proportion of them play games, and then talk to them about what things they want to do. And you're basically preaching to the choir already. And as Ed said, if you're talking to traditional gamers, a lot of them are going to be sort of teenagers who are going to be used to the like freemium economies, and as Ed has previously said, they're used to being some way of trying to be monetized and nickel and dime over and over again. Whereas you start with an NFT degen, they're like, well, actually, I want someone to add value to my NFT. And it's quite a different experience, because they go, well, I totally get, this allows me to do something, it's a pass, I get access to it. So what is the thing you're offering me? And I think that's a better starting position. I think that sort of space, it is a much smaller user base, because obviously there's only a few million degens, but then gaming, there's billions of players, and that's why it's very tempting to try and move one market into another. So I think that's a bit of a challenge. But I think one of the things that is nice, and one of the things that canVERSE plays on quite a bit, is we do try and work all together cooperatively as well. So because Web3 is designed to be interoperable, this is where canVERSE is helping other NFT projects going, well, we've created some images, but we don't know how to create a metaverse piece of content. So the simple example of that is we've worked with someone like Toxic Skull Club. They had loads of 2D art and they wanted to move that into 3D. Then we built them special pieces that they can put in game. And then that allows their users that they've about 7,000 owners into the metaverse. They can see what it looks like in 3D. And then they can suddenly go, oh, this is a totally different experience than just looking at what my NFT looks like on OpenSea. So I think it's a learning of who is your core market. There is yes, you want to make the market bigger, but I think we do that by all the sort of Web3 projects being more collaborative with each other, and also then slowly onboarding people on hey, this is a cool thing you can do. And as we said earlier, it's not necessarily you realize that's what's happening and you go, well, actually, we'll give you an NFT, and this is sort of, what Reddit did, where you custodian of their wallet. But if they want to, and you can prove it has value, then you say, well, actually, this isn't ours, this is yours, and you can take at any point. So it is starting with the core sort of degen audience, and then also slowly onboarding a wider market as well. And I think that's what's going to be exciting.
It's pretty interesting talking about broadening your audience, broadening the market. We had a presidential candidate here in the United States recently issue an NFT. Former President Trump issued an NFT. It sold out in a matter of hours, 100,000, probably to people who never even knew what an NFT was before.
Yes, he has the ability to persuade quite a hardcore audience who didn't believe in it, quite quickly flip to believing in it, and as you said, selling 100,000 of them quite quickly.
Amazing. Ed, let's turn to you once again. If anyone wants to become a metaverse builder, what's the first step to establishing their career in this space?
That's a good question. So unfortunately, we lack the standards for someone to learn one set of skills and it to be applicable in every metaverse at the moment. This is really a big problem where we're still in the very early sort of Netscape kind of days of the internet, where you didn't have a seamless protocol to communicate back and forwards with. So currently, someone who wants to build a career in the metaverse, I mean, there's a bunch of fundamental skills they could use, sort of like learning how to use Blender to be able to create 3D assets, or learning how to use Unity to be able to make a sort of a 3D environment interactive, are definite things that will remain to be useful for quite some time. But I'd say keep your ear to the ground, because over the next few months, few years, we're going to start seeing these unified standards that all developers are agreeing to build metaverse assets with, so that effectively you can build an asset with one set of tools and it can be applicable in a number of different metaverse applications. So I wouldn't want to advise someone to go and learn the wrong thing, which is why I'm saying keep it simple, because Blender is, again, everyone's always going to need 3D models to be able to put into their pretty worlds, and everyone's going to need those pretty worlds to be built. So you have your choice of Unreal Engine or Unity to be able to start building these interactive environments, and then applications like Blender, of course, to start creating 3D models. So these are sort of core skills that I believe will continue to be useful for quite some time in the metaverse. But as far as the actual SDKs that are coming out, there still is no unified winner. Kronos Group is doing some interesting stuff with the open metaverse. There are definitely a few people out there pushing this narrative forward, Frogland included. We've been building a lot of tools that will open up to other developers to be able to use, that will connect their applications, their games, into our Discord economy, into our backend, into our metaverse, so to speak. I would also say, if there is someone who did have a keen fascination on learning how to get involved in a metaverse, jump into the Frogland Discord, because we do have a number of experts. A couple of our co-founders come from Disney, so they've been talking through some electrical engineers to actually learn how to use Blender, and he's now creating 3D models that are going to appear inside the game. So simply being part of a community will give you access to learn new skills and tools that you'll find useful. Frogland has already started to cultivate sort of an audience that is keen to learn. So I'd say that's also a great resource for anyone who does want to just hop in and ask around. If it's anything from learning how to code Solidity all the way up to sort of graphic design, we have a bunch of people in the Discord who are always very happy to help.
Great advice for sure. Barn, for anyone who is entering the space and wants to attract investors for their project, what suggestions do you have for them?
I think you have to, the classic one is, you do need what is the plan for your company and how is it going to build value? So for VCs, they do want a quite large level of return. So it isn't like I want to double my money or even change it by, increase it 10-fold. They do want like 50 to 100 times. So you have to have quite a big idea of what it's going to be. So you then need some way of going, how is the line going to go up? And if you're looking at the NFT space, there are a lot of people who, well, certainly last year were trying to launch projects, and then we'll add the utility afterwards. I think the utility now is more important, of why is this going to be an exciting project? How is this going to be engaging for the audience? But then how are you going to do the marketing for it as well? So on video games, typically, the level of development you actually do the same level of investment in your marketing as well. And I think quite quickly, sort of metaverse projects are going to get in the same position, where it's all going to be, you can create a great product, but you also need a great marketing team as well. So there is a balance of how do you get to market and how do you prove that that's going to add value to people, and then how are you going to be able to tell people and announce that to the world.
And tell us about your partnership with Blockchain Game Alliance and how you're benefiting from it.
So the BGA is such an incredible resource for anyone inside the crypto community or the Web3 community to take part in. Through the BGA, I've been able to meet some incredible members of the space I've otherwise been unable to contact. I've been able to start working on partnerships and onboarding developers who are building different games into sort of getting them to bring playable content into the Frogland Metaverse. Overall, it's been an incredibly supportive community who can't do enough to help promote the word of Web3 throughout the game space. They are at every event. I bumped into Sebastian a number of times at the show floor, on the booths, actually sort of doing great work, telling people everything that's needed to be found out, to be able to join the BGA. Overall, I mean, it's just a great community through and through, where, again, they can't do enough to help. So I've only started to scratch the surface. We joined maybe a couple of months ago, but ever since then, I mean, I've been really digging into every email I can get and finding out as much as I can, because there's just such a wealth of information and such a great tightly knit group of people who just want to help out. So yeah, really, my 2 cents, it is an invaluable asset for anyone in the gaming space that's looking to get into Web3, or in the Web3 space who's looking to get into gaming.
All right, Barn, same question for you. Tell us about your partnership with BGA and how you're benefiting from it.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with Ed. It's the collaboration element that's great. It's less competitive, as in people want to help each other, and that's kind of it does make the whole pie bigger, and that's why everyone's quite keen to go, well, we do want standards on things like Metaverse and how can that happen. But we are slightly far away from that because I've gone through this previously with sort of in-game advertising. These things take a while, but the beginningness of the will of people wanting to do it is there. And then there's just the level of understanding of, well, is someone found a better way of doing a particular thing? So this is all quite bleeding edge technology. And I say bleeding because leading edges, there's already some guidelines, there's already, there's some documentation about how things work. A lot of the time, none of that exists. You sort of try it and then, that falls over. And then someone goes, did you try the strange thing that isn't documented because it only works a certain way? And those things are really vital to find out when you can chat with a community or find the sort of weird and wacky things that fell over because none of it's really documented, or maybe there's a better API system for pulling it, NFTs from the blockchain or other bits and components of that. So yeah, that's why it's really important.
All right, now it's time for our rapid fire questions. You got your buzzers ready? Bam. Okay. We're looking for quick responses on these questions. Ed, I'll begin with you. What are your Bitcoin predictions for the year 2023?
Crikey, I think we're going to be in a bit of a crab market for most of 2023. I think we'll see a little bit of ups, a little bit of downs, but overall, I think we'll probably finish the year fairly close to where we're at the moment.
All right, Barn, how about you?
I'm just going to be, maybe I'm just overly optimistic. Maybe just slightly up, but not a massive amount. I'm more bullish on Ethereum, to be honest.
Okay. What industry sector, Ed, do you think will grow the most in the metaverse?
So I think we're going to see 2 industries. Music, first and foremost. I think music is going to find its home in the Web3 space in the metaverse. It certainly found it tricky to catch along in terms of buying NFTs for music, but certainly I think having 3D worlds for them to immerse themselves in with binaural audio and all this fun tech is going to be the way that music is going to get adopted very well inside a metaverse. That and AI, of course. I can only imagine in a few short months you'll be able to be inside a metaverse and use some sort of image, text or speech to 3D model technology to be able to say, give me an armchair, and you'll just get an armchair. And so I think we're going to see some interesting things over the course of 2023 getting built into the metaverse.
All right, Barn, what about you? What industry sector you think will grow the most in the metaverse?
I think we're gonna see a shift of, we're finally going to actually see like the holographic 3D screens. I think that's quite possible. I mean, there are companies like Tilt5 that are building them. They're quite low end in price, which is good because obviously things like Magic Leap were thousands of dollars, whereas Tilt5 is only hundreds of dollars. So I think there'll be a sudden uptake of a sort of B2B as well. Unity's certainly doing a big push into digital twin type applications where people can actually see their 3D models. So there's this nice onboarding of being able to take CAD data and then putting those in game within the metaverse itself. So before it was, here's something that was used for manufacturing, but we didn't really do anything with it. But now you can get the person who's designing it can actually see it there and then you can take that to the client and then that can be edited. So I think there might be a fair bit of B2B, but then that pushes into B2C. But from a B2C as well, I think gaming always, gamers are quite keen on trying the new things. So I think that will be another big sector too.
All right, Ed, what NFT projects are you anticipating this year?
Anticipating from Frogland or anticipating from the space in general? Because
space in general, Frogland as well, if you'd like to share with us.
Well, I'd say in 2023, we actually, for those who are frog holders already, there's a puzzle, there's a hunt for 2 frogs. ongoing. And if you find them and you can get help in the Discord, then you'll be able to get 2 free mints of 2 free frogs. So I will say that's an NFT drop that's happening at the moment. We do have a number of other NFT drops, companions, access to different mini games, and access to different parts of the community that will be coming over the course of 2023 as well from Frogland. As far as everything else, crikey. I mean, I know the Bored Ape Yacht Club has an interesting mint happening in a few short days I'm looking forward to. I think through that, we just had the Mutant Hounds have just revealed they were good. The Applied Primate Engineering has been doing some interesting stuff. There's 10KTF. I mean, there's just so much stuff happening. I could go on all day. There's a lot happening, and it's going to be an interesting year.
Awesome. Looking forward to it. Same question to you, Barn. What NFT drops are you anticipating for this year?
Well, I was going to say a year is quite far in advance as well. Normally you get like a week. So I'm gonna pump my own bags as well. I think generally what I'm quite enjoying is the canVERSE NFT drop, which will have a way of every time we do a collab with someone, we make 2 versions of a skin. We play with them in game, and if you have not only the NFT from the partner but our one as well, if you have the partners, you get the exclusive one. But if you got the canVERSE NFT as well, you get like a VIP version of that. I'm interested to see what Merit Circle is going to be doing, because that's quite a large DAO. The Eden Hordes were good. We actually personally bought one of those. So I think that will be an interesting one. And Gala Games as well would be another one to watch.
And I'm anticipating the 40 presidential candidates here in the United States, each dropping an NFT this year, each valued about really nothing but $100,000 a piece, probably.
Yep.
But kidding aside, what is the metaverse going to look like in the year 2025? Ed, I'll begin with you.
So again, this goes back to standards. I think by 2025, those standards will exist, and we should see a few market leaders in these metaverse spaces. So I think they will act as central hubs, and we'll start seeing smaller experiences that dial into those worlds that you can travel in between. So I think that's going to be what the metaverse space should look like by 2025. I think it's going to be very similar. Hardware shouldn't have advanced too much in the space of sort of a couple of years. So yeah, we'll see. But I think ultimately very similar to where we're at now, but just a better level of interoperability between what are now walled garden and isolated experiences.
Sounds great. And Barn, take a look in that crystal ball. What do you see in the year 2025?
I would say that we are probably going to end up streaming the content. So it's going to look pretty realistic. So instead of having to have a high-end NVIDIA graphics card, it will just work on your phone. And I think, as I said, it's more going to be, it's not going to be a flat screen. It's going to be 3-dimensional, so you can reach in and grab it. And this is the sort of, I think even like VR is quite insulated. That's why I think AR might be a more interesting play of it, because then you can share it with friends. So it wouldn't surprise me if AR takes off before VR. So I think it's more about, there will be, I agree with Ed about that we'll finally fix, with rather than everyone having their own metaverse, there will be a standard. And certainly that's how we've built it. It's in a way of, this is why we've designed the games that can work across multiple platforms. So I think that will get fixed, and I think the high fidelity-ness of it, but also that how you physically interact with it, I'll be able to reach in and grab things, which I think will be more exciting.
Do you think you'll need stereoscopic vision in order to get this 3D effect?
You can. So they've been lots of research. So like, as I said, the Tilt 5 system, it's the holographic one. Those glasses weigh sub 100 grams. So you don't no longer have to think about these big heavy systems
goggles. Yeah,
it's nearer, I mean, not quite the glasses I'm wearing now, but as soon as you get less than 100, I think that's really critical. But then also the other one is that when you can use your eyes to focus on the other person or what you're looking at, then you don't have to trick your brain so much. So it's not like this infinite distance of things as well. But yeah, that's why we sort of designed for this leap to XR first, because we think if you design it where the view of, well, there's something on your table and it's a counter and it sort of flips over. So for us, there's these checkers, it's either black or white's turn. So we have a little counter that flips over. So if you want to see whose turn it is, you just look at it. So it's less of worrying about something on the top of your eye saying it's black or white's turn. It's on the table, there'll be something that's flipped over. So it's quite an interesting how you design that as a mechanic, but you suddenly realize you've got a lot more space that you can look around at. And I think there'll be more clever design interactions as well.
Ed, any thoughts on this immersion?
I do agree. I think AR is definitely going to be more of a widely adopted technology than VR will. It's less isolating. It's going to be more immersive and more social. I hope that by 2025, we're going to see sort of some really, really good glasses out on market and publicly available to everyone, because I really can't wait. I've been a big fan of VR for a long time. I've done a lot of development in that space, and now seeing AR on the cusp of coming out, it's really, really exciting. Of course, there's a few things that it's holding back the adoption of the technology. Primarily the hardware needed to drive it, because you are limited to either mobile phones that sit in your pocket that you plug into, or plugging into desktop computers. Both are good, but neither are really perfect. I think something else needs to come out, and we're, funnily enough, working on exactly that little middleware piece of device. But I'll save that for another day. Ultimately, yeah, I think the future is definitely going to be looking more towards XR as a medium of interactivity inside these 3D metaverses.
Sounds great. Final question for you both. Barn, I'll begin with you. This has all been inspiring, but I'd like to leave the audience now with an inspiring message about 2023 for students, creators, builders, and NFT Studio 24 viewers. What do you have to say to them that will get them behind the keyboard and then reaching beyond it someday?
I think that's going to be quite varied of what they could do. And I think if you want to try and do something small where you do everything, that's probably a good starting point. So in this sort of analogy, if you had started a Unity project, I would actually go all the way of releasing it, trying to get it on either the Apple and Google store or put it on Steam. And then that'll give you an experience end to end of what it's like. And then once you've got that, you go, well, I actually really enjoyed the art, or I really enjoyed writing the script, or it was the business development of actually having to go to Valve and getting approval and all the rest of the legal of it. And then because it's quite a wide set of tools that you need to do, and you need lots of people, you can sort of see, well, I actually enjoy that bit, and then they can double down on that. And I think it's I'm interested in this space, but then I can narrow down slightly more of what I want to be able to do in it.
All right, Ed, how about you? What's your inspiring message to viewers?
I'd say just get involved. This is one of the reasons why I love emerging tech so much, is because it's emerging. Not everyone knows much about it. I mean, to say people in Web3, the vast majority of people in Web3 today weren't in Web3 12 months ago. So it doesn't need a huge amount of time and effort to be able to learn what this technology is and how it can be used. So if you're somewhat technically inclined, then I would urge anyone to start spending time to learn about how this technology is being used and find out how it can be used, because this is a time where empires will be forged. This is when we look back at the sort of the birth of the dot-com bubble. We've seen a very similar transition where this new Web3 bubble has popped, and yet what is coming out of that, like a phoenix from the ashes, is a technology that is being used by businesses and companies and games in a more interesting way. Just as we saw after the dot-com bubble, the rise of the Googles and the Facebooks, I think we're going to see the same transition where new Web3 companies are now given the opportunity to get going. And so, yeah, if you're just somewhat interested in technology in any shape or form, I would urge you to come and pay attention to Web3.
This is the time empires are being forged. Great quote. We'll leave you with that today. Edward Mason, founder of Frogland, Good Ribbit Productions, LLC. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure. And Cleave, CEO of canVERSE. An amazing conversation today. We appreciate your time and your insight.
Thank you.
My pleasure. And to the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford. Thanks for watching NFT Studio 24. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more exclusive content.